The story itself has flown under the radar for a very long time. Were either of you aware of the kind of circumstances of the German POWs clearing the landmines in Denmark before?
No. Not at all.
So what's
I know because I'm married to a guy.
You cheated.
I cheated, but before that I didn't know.
What surprised you most when you were learning about it then, getting ready for the film?
The story, that it was actually like that, because it's not something that you are taught in school at all. So that we took war prisoners and made them, clear the beaches was a big surprise for me.
What about for you? Is there something that stood out that you were just really shocked by when you were finding out about it?
Yeah, was it also the story that they forced these people these young guys in disguise. The war ended.
And that so
was
many
kind of
people
the end of what you'd been taught.
Yeah.
Probably the war ended.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's it. Full stop. Nothing else happened.
No.
Well, and you filmed, I think, where the actual beaches were on the West Coast.
Yeah.
What was that like? How important was it for you as a cinematographer to be in that location, and as an actor, kind of being, not all of your scenes were on the beach, but how does that add kind of depth for you to be able to take part?
It gives some realism to the feeling of stepping into the character, just to be in that landscape and imagine how it would be like for these boys to digging up all those mines at this enormous beach as it is. So some realism, that was good.
Good morning, gentlemen. What about for you in terms of?
Yeah, the same. It really gave some realness to the film, and that you knew that it was actually here.
It feels like almost its own character, the landscape there. Was that intentional? Was that something you were trying to?
Yeah, that we wanted it to be this character in itself. That's what we really wanted, yeah.
And during the Q&A the other day after the premiere, he mentioned that it was all filmed on Handheld, which just blew my mind, by the way. It's really, really good. What made you decide to shoot it that way, and did that add any particular challenges to you when you were making the film?
Martin really likes handheld, and he likes that it just moves a little bit. Not much, but just a little bit. Just also, where he's introducing the guys, or in the car when they're coming. It's handheld, and it's just gives some liveness to it.
And get some realism.
And realism, yeah.
An intimacy there with the characters and getting to know. He mentioned that he loves faces.
Yeah.
And I guess that maybe adds an extra layer to that.
Yeah, and it's also you can react better, I think, to a face and a character's movements when you're handheld. There's little things, but
you can kind of dance a little bit with as they move. You move too. How did you become involved with the film?
Martin, he called me, and I had a meeting with him, and he told me about the project and the story, and then he gave me the script, and I read it, and I thought it was a beautiful script, and as I said before, an important story to tell, because no one in Denmark or the rest of the world know about this chapter. And then I liked the challenge of playing this bad guy who is just, full of hatred against the German and just wants to punish them for what they did. Because I think that was the general feeling after the war, that nobody liked the Germans. Even the small kids who were innocent and forced into the war, nobody liked them. So, and then I've seen Martin's films before, his other films, and I think they're great. And actually I also knew Camilla from before, so that was a lot of good things.
Well, and your character is interesting, and I think the Danish soldiers in general are interesting because they're not bad guys in the traditional sense. You can understand where the anger comes from, and that part is totally relatable. But the sergeant kind of changes when he starts to see the boys as kind of human beings with lives and families to go back to. Do you think your character might have kind of, had he had a catalyst like that, being closer to them, gone in that direction, or was the hate kind of at the center of what?
Well, he might have. If he was at the beaches with the boys, he might have. But it was important that I represented the feeling back then, so I could be the opponent to Carl. But yeah, so that was fun to do.
I think that when you in any conflict, if you get to know people,
yeah, exactly,
and you get to know their dreams and their fears and their hopes and dreams, then you stop hating because you understand each other, and I think that's a thing that is lacking with war. You're not supposed to understand the opponent because then you can't do the war.
No.
Yeah, you kind of have to dehumanize the enemy to get on with what you're doing. To get on with the
so I think if we understood each other a little bit more and knew where each other were coming from, then I don't think there would be that many more wars.
I was going to say, when you're watching the film, that actually comes to your mind when you're watching it. You're just like, it's not that it's senseless, but that if people just knew each other better, this might not happen in that way. During the Q&A, Martin also mentioned that the phrase, and it kind of stuck with me, that humanity is kind of better than the eye for an eye justice that we kind of see in the film. Is that, you think, a main message that people are going to take away? What do you want people to take away when they see the film?
I hope they take that message with them, that an eye for an eye is not going to help anything, and it's not helping. I mean, see the last...
There's so many things going on right now where you can learn from this story, I think. Right? Just remember that even though you're enemies, as you said before, it's just important to remember that to treat each other with respect. And
was Thursday the first time that you'd both seen the movie? I know he mentioned it was the first time that he'd seen it completely finished and calibrated and everything. Was it the first time that you'd gotten a chance to see it?
I saw it in Denmark before.
Oh, you did? Okay, so you saw it completely. What was it like watching with an audience?
It was cool. It was cool, especially with here in Toronto with a not Danish audience. It was cool to see that it actually worked.
Yeah.
Also here.
I was going to say, was there a worry there that it wouldn't translate, not in terms of language, but in terms of the story?
Yeah, both language and also because it's a Danish story, but you could feel that the audience were there and they were sucked into the story. So it was a great experience.
Yeah, just hearing people saying, "Oh no."
Yeah.
No.
And when the dog
Sorry,
dies.
That was totally me. Yeah. No, that was me. Yeah. That's because there is that. I mean, there's an inherent tension in the story that you don't really have to add. In that, once you know there are landmines there, anything could happen at kind of any point in time. Which is why there was a lot of this happening, a lot of covering of the eyes occasionally. But there's one moment in the movie that I think stands out because it's quieter than the rest of the movie when Ernst purposely walks into the minefield.
Yeah.
Did you take a different standpoint on that from the cinematography side and the filming of it as well?
Yeah, because we're in a wide shot, and I think what we talked about was the hopelessness in it, and I think they took out the sound in the editing. We didn't talk about that in the filming of it.
Okay,
but it was more, so we're not sobbing, but just, this is what it is.
Yeah, and it kind of forces you to watch because it's the long shot. And you get to see actually everyone watching it happen as well. It's not just focused in on.
And the hopelessness in it. I mean,
was there a part in the film that you're particularly proud of in terms of how it turned out in terms of the filming? A scene or a moment?
Yeah, I really like the interaction with the Carl and the boys, and I think there's some really great scenes with him and the boys, and him with the ball and the roof, and that,
the kind of lighter moments too, the more human moments, really.
I really like the poesy in the movie, like when one of the twins are playing with the little beagle.
Oh, Tim Benny.
Tim Benny, that whole scene, I think it's so beautiful, so poetic.
Yeah, and also the scene with Carl and the middle twin when Werner is dead and he wants to go look for him.
amazing.
Yeah, it's always acting for me. It's always, where I really get a kick out of filming is when the actors is acting and the film is
when you're almost a fly on the wall, kind of watching.
Yeah, and I'm just feeling the characters' feelings. That's why it's really strong for me to film and be a photographer.
Sometimes you cry, right?
Yeah.
Take your eye out.
It would be hard not to watching some of those, especially the scene where he's comforting him.
Because in Denmark we have a tradition of the DOP also do the operating.
Okay.
So I'm operating myself. So my eye got in my eye. What do you call it?
Floods.
Kind of.
Yeah, it floods with tears.
Can't see what you're filming, but you're still there.
Yeah.
And your character has some pretty intense scenes as well. Is there one that you found particularly challenging to do?
Well, in general, I don't speak one word of German at all.
Okay.
So that was a big challenge for me. And maybe it's hard for you guys to tell, but there's a big difference between the Danish and German. We don't. It's completely another language.
Right.
So it was a big challenge to act on another language that you didn't know at all. But also fun and a great challenge.
Yeah, it could have been Chinese.
Just a language you don't speak. So was that the case for a lot of the actors, or was there kind of a mixture?
No, I think Roland he speaks German quite well, and of course the boys. So
it was only you.
It was only me who was. I was actually, when Martin he offered me the part, I was like, no, I think you should give it to another because I can't do this. But then I just started working at it.
And you were happy with how you think?
The German guy says that it's approved.
I was going to say, because that is one thing from an international audience, is that we can't tell like the accents.
No.
Somebody asked yesterday about the West Coast accent being different from the and I'm going, nobody is going to know.
No,
we have no idea. So we knew it was German, so it sounded great to me. So you did an excellent job. What was it like for you getting to see it with the audience? Was it the first time for you seeing it with an audience?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
Yes, it was. But I seen it before because Martin, we did approve it in Denmark, but he was out traveling, so I approved it on behalf of him.
So he was really the only one who had.
Yeah, the whole thing. I mean, he saw the sound and everything when we're done grading and doing the sound, but the DCP and everything, he didn't see it. Fine. But yeah, it's a big experience to see it with the audience. I mean, it's amazing. It's so amazing.
It's what you do.
Yeah, and I think, when I get to Denmark, I think I'm gonna go watch it as well with
audiences.
With audiences, because you also learn a lot about the film and what works and what doesn't,
and where they react in places that maybe you weren't expecting people to kind of react.
Yeah.
You just sit the opposite way, just looking at them.
Don't sit with them, but sit in front of them, kind of looking back.
And I was looking around, and they were going like holding their eyes.
There's a lot of it does make you think, because you're watching it in this comfortable chair in this beautiful theater, but you're watching these young boys go through this horrible, and every moment you're tense at the same time. It really puts you, which I can only imagine when you're actually there doing it, what's going through your mind when you're filming it. And I think he also said that they're still clearing the mines. That I don't know. Well, they were when you were shooting. I don't know if they've decided that
we found a mine on the day that we came there. There was a mine. I think they stopped clearing mines like a couple of years ago. Yeah.
What was the experience like when you actually found it?
It wasn't me. It was I think it was a tourist or something that found a mine.
It was another actor and he blew up, so he just died.
You had stand-ins ready to come in just in case. He did say that, I think when you were filming, that they were deactivated but real mines that they were using as well.
Yeah.
Was that... I feel like as an actor that would terrify me as well, but you've mentioned a lot that realism was really important to you. Do you think that really added to the realism of the actual movie as a whole? Those little things, kind of?
Yeah, I think so. And we weren't allowed, when we were filming, we we're also filming in the military area.
Okay.
So, you know, they're doing rehearsals and everything. So we're not allowed to, I mean, there's sure we're not going to cover us if we're going to go outside the, you know, the path.
Right, okay.
So that, you know, that gave something to me as well, you know, walking on unsafe ground.
I was going to say, it puts you, it's like the scenes where they're not quite sure whether they've cleared it or not. You can't be 100% sure that there isn't something that somebody's miscounted or missed, or just thinking about that now, that's terrifying.
Yeah.
Again, the standing on beaches is going to be very different, I think, for probably the people involved in the movie too. It makes you think. Probably.
But also, I mean, there's a lot of landmines that are put down now. I mean, just in war, I mean, there's so many landmines around the world. That is, I mean, terrifying. Kids playing, getting blown off. I mean, still.
It is. There's another. I saw another movie at the festival. I don't know if you've seen it. The Kilo 2 Bravo.
Yeah, I heard about it yesterday.
It's very similar in that obviously it's more modern. It's 2006, but it is landmines that were left from a conflict that happened previously. That you get caught up in because you don't know that they're there. So it's a very, even though you're telling a story from post-war era, it's very contemporary. And it's
I just did another movie where I'm a soldier, Danish soldier coming home from Afghanistan, whose legs are blown off by the landmine. So it's happening to me.
It also has kind of special meaning for you because it's current and from before. It's also the first film that premiered as a part of the new platform series, and when they were introducing the film, they were saying that all the films involved in that series were kind of challenging or made you question things. How would you describe the film to people who haven't seen it yet?
What I thought about when I saw it this time, I was like, I thought it was so poetic. It was it's so harsh and tough, but I think it's so beautiful. I really focused on the scenes with the boys and their dreams about the future and hopes, and you know they want to go home to Germany and build up this country that I totally teared apart. And that was what I saw a lot of beauty in it this time, in all this darkness.
That's a very good way to describe it. How would you describe it?
I think it's very important to understand that war, as we talked about before, war is war because you don't know your opponent, and once you get to know each other, the war, the need of fighting dissolves, and I think it's important to remember that you respect each other and you understand, you try to understand each other, neighbors and friends, and I mean, you know, like in all areas of life, it's very important that you try to understand each other, where you're coming from.
And recognize the humanity kind of in everybody.
And then for a Danish perspective, it's also important to remember that we were not just fighting the Germans all the time. You know, this story is so full of side stories, and this chapter has never been told, as we talked about before. So I think it's, you know, for a historical point of view, it's just important to tell this story as well.
That's true. I mean, for everybody, not just think for Danish, because I think there were landmines all throughout that coast from Norway down, and
there were mostly in Denmark.
Yeah. How many? I know that the beach they were clearing, I think, had 45. It was something crazy. The number just blew my mind away.
I think there was 1.2 million mines on the Danish west coast, and it was because Hitler thought that the invasion was going to come from there. Instead we're walking in over Denmark, you know.
Right.
Yeah,
that makes sense. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
It was amazing. I really, really enjoyed the film.